Imagine this. You're standing behind a diner counter on a chilly autumn morning. The smell of coffee fills the air, mingling with the hum of conversation and clinking dishes. You've been working non-stop for hours. Your feet ache and your mind is racing with worries about bills, responsibilities, and the weight of just getting by. But then, something catches your eye. An elderly woman sits alone by the window, her frail hands trembling as she adjusts her glasses. She looks lost, almost invisible amidst the chaos of the bustling diner. Hello and welcome to Tales with Sekos. Today I'm going to share an amazing story of kindness. Some moments in life seem small at first. A fleeting gesture, a kind word, or even just a cup of coffee shared between strangers. But sometimes, those tiny acts ripple outward, shaping destinies in ways we could never predict. For Sarah, a young waitress working tirelessly to make ends meet, one such moment began with a simple act of kindness toward an elderly woman. Little did she know, that single decision would change her life forever. It was a crisp autumn morning at Maggie's Diner. A quaint little eatery tucked away on the outskirts of town, the smell of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the aroma of pancakes and bacon, creating an inviting warmth that drew locals inside. Behind the counter stood Sarah, a 27-year-old waitress whose bright smile masked the weight of her struggles. Life hadn't been easy for her lately. Between juggling 2 jobs, caring for her younger brother, and trying to keep up with mounting bills, every day felt like a battle against time and exhaustion. Sarah had worked at Maggie's for 3 years now. It wasn't glamorous work, but it paid the bills, or at least part of them. On this particular morning, the diner was bustling with customers, truck drivers grabbing breakfast before hitting the road, families enjoying lazy weekend meals, and regulars chatting over steaming cups of coffee. Amidst the chatter and clinking of plates, Sarah moved gracefully from table to table, balancing trays laden with food and drinks while flashing her trademark grin. But as busy as things were, there was one customer who caught Sarah's attention almost immediately, an elderly woman sitting alone by the window. She looked frail, her silver hair neatly pinned back, and her hands trembling slightly as she adjusted her glasses. There was something about her demeanor that tugged at Sarah's heartstrings. Perhaps it was the way she gazed out the window wistfully, lost in thought, or the faint sadness etched into the lines of her face. Whatever it was, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that this woman needed more than just a warm meal today. Straightening her apron, Sarah approached the table with her usual cheerfulness. "Good morning, Mom," she said warmly. "Can I get you started with some coffee?" The woman glanced up, startled, as if she hadn't noticed anyone approaching. For a brief moment, their eyes met, and Sarah saw a flicker of gratitude behind the woman's tired expression. "Oh, yes, please," the woman replied softly. "Just a small cup, if you don't mind." As Sarah poured the coffee, she noticed the woman fumbling through her purse, searching for coins. It was clear she didn't have much money, not enough to cover even the cheapest item on the menu. Sarah hesitated for a moment, then made a split-second decision. Setting the cup down gently, she smiled and said, "This one's on me, Mom. Consider it my treat." The woman blinked in surprise, her lips curving into a tentative smile. "Are you sure? I wouldn't want to cause any trouble." "No trouble at all," Sarah assured her. "Everyone deserves a good cup of coffee now and then." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The woman wrapped her hands around a warm mug, savoring its heat, and let out a quiet sigh. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she said, "Thank you, dear. You're very kind." Unbeknownst to Sarah, her act of kindness hadn't gone unnoticed. Across the room, Maggie, the owner of the diner, was watching closely. Maggie was a no-nonsense woman in her late 50s, known for running her business with military precision. While she prided herself on providing affordable meals to the community, she also had strict rules about giving away free items. In her mind, charity was a luxury they simply couldn't afford, not when profits were already razor-thin. As Sarah returned to the kitchen to refill orders, Maggie intercepted her. "What was that I saw?" Maggie asked sharply, her arms crossed over her chest. "Did you just give away a free coffee without permission?" Sarah swallowed hard, her cheeks flushing with embarrassment. I thought it was okay," she stammered. "She didn't have much money, and I figured—" "You figured wrong," Maggie interrupted, her tone icy. "We can't run a business like that, Sarah. If everyone started giving away free stuff, we'd be out of business in a week. Do you understand?" Sarah nodded silently, guilt gnawing at her stomach. She knew Maggie was right, at least from a financial standpoint, but it didn't make her feel any better. Still, she forced a weak smile and promised it wouldn't happen again. The rest of Sarah's shift passed uneventfully, though the memory of the elderly woman lingered in her mind. When closing time finally arrived, Sarah clocked out and headed home, exhausted but relieved to put the day behind her. Or so she thought. The next morning, Sarah arrived at the diner early, eager to start fresh, but instead of being greeted by the familiar hum of activity, she found Maggie waiting for her near the entrance. The look on Maggie's face sent a chill down Sarah's spine. "We need to talk," Maggie said bluntly, gesturing for Sarah to follow her into the office. Once inside, Maggie closed the door and turned to face her. "I've decided to let you go, Sarah." Sarah's heart sank. "What? Why?" "Because of yesterday," Maggie replied, her voice firm. "Giving away free items sets a bad precedent. I warned you once, but clearly it didn't sink in. I can't have employees who disregard the rules." For a moment, Sarah was too stunned to speak. Losing this job meant losing not only income, but also stability, and she couldn't afford either right now. Desperate, she tried to plead her case. "Please, Maggie, I'll do better. I promise. Just give me another chance." Maggie shook her head. "I'm sorry, Sarah. It's nothing personal, but I have to think about the business. You're a hard worker, and I hate to see you go, but this is final." With those words, Sarah's world crumbled. As she walked out of the diner, clutching her belongings in a cardboard box, tears streamed down her face. She felt defeated, angry, and utterly lost. What was she supposed to do now? But fate has a funny way of intervening when we least expect it. Later that evening, as Sarah sat alone in her tiny apartment, staring blankly at the wall, there was a knock at the door. Confused, she opened it to find the elderly woman from the diner standing outside, holding a small envelope. "Hello, dear," the woman said, with a gentle smile. "May I come in?" Sarah blinked in disbelief, her heart pounding as she stared at the elderly woman standing on her doorstep. She hadn't expected to see her again, not after yesterday's events, and certainly not here, at her modest apartment. For a moment, Sarah wondered if this was some kind of mistake, but the warmth in the woman's eyes reassured her that this visit was intentional. "Of course," Sarah stammered, stepping aside to let her in. "Please, come in." The elderly woman entered slowly, leaning slightly on her cane. Despite her frail appearance, there was an air of quiet dignity about her. She glanced around the sparsely furnished living room, taking note of the worn furniture and peeling wallpaper, before turning back to Sarah with a gentle smile. "I hope I'm not intruding," she said softly, "but I felt I owed you something." Sarah shook her head quickly. No, it's fine, really. Can I get you anything? Water? Tea?" The woman waved her off. "No need, dear. Just a moment of your time will do." She held up the small envelope she'd been carrying. "This is for you." Suspicion flickered across Sarah's face as she took the envelope. It was plain and unmarked, its contents hidden from view. "What is this?" she asked cautiously. The woman chuckled softly, the sound like leaves rustling in the wind. "Open it and see." With trembling hands, Sarah carefully opened the envelope. Inside, she found a folded piece of paper and a check. Her breath caught in her throat as she unfolded the check and saw the amount written on it, $50,000. For a long moment, Sarah couldn't move. Her mind raced, trying to process what she was seeing. Was this real? Had she misread the numbers? Finally, she managed to choke out, I don't understand. Why are you giving me this?" The elderly woman settled into the chair Sarah had offered her, her expression calm but resolute. "Because you reminded me of someone very special," she began. "Years ago, when my husband and I were struggling financially, a stranger once gave us a meal we couldn't afford. That act of kindness meant the world to us. It kept us going during one of the darkest times of our lives, and now, I want to pay it forward." Sarah sank onto the couch opposite her, still clutching the envelope tightly. "But why me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "You barely know me." The woman smiled knowingly. "Sometimes it's not about knowing someone deeply. It's about recognizing their character. When I saw how you treated me at the diner, with such kindness and compassion, I knew you were someone who deserved help. You didn't hesitate to give me that coffee, even though you risked getting into trouble. That says a lot about who you are." She paused, her gaze drifting toward the window as memories washed over her. My name is Evelyn, by the way. My late husband and I built a successful business together after that difficult time. We always dreamed of helping others the way we were helped. Unfortunately, he passed away a few years ago, and I've spent much of my time since then looking for ways to honor his memory. Seeing you reminded me of our shared values: kindness, resilience, and hope. Evelyn leaned forward slightly, her eyes locking onto Sarah's. Take this money, dear. Use it to build a better future for yourself. Pay your bills, take care of your brother, or pursue whatever dreams you've been putting on hold. Just promise me one thing. Anything, Sarah whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. What do you want me to promise? Promise me that when you're able, you'll pass this kindness along. Help someone else the way I'm helping you now. Keep the cycle going. Sitting there in stunned silence, Sarah realized that Evelyn wasn't just offering financial assistance, she was handing her a lifeline. This gift wasn't just about easing her immediate struggles. It was about empowering her to create a brighter future. The weight of gratitude pressed heavily on her chest, but it was a good kind of heaviness, the kind that comes with purpose. I promise, Sarah said firmly, her voice steadying despite the tears. I won't forget what you've done for me, Evelyn. I'll make sure to pay it forward. Evelyn nodded approvingly, her smile widening. Good. Now dry those tears, dear. Your journey is just beginning. After exchanging a few more words, Evelyn rose to leave. Before stepping out the door, she turned back to Sarah one last time. Remember, life has a way of surprising us when we least expect it. Trust in the goodness of people, and never underestimate the power of a single act of kindness. In the days that followed, Sarah pored over Evelyn's words, letting them sink deep into her soul. At first, she felt overwhelmed by the responsibility of handling such a large sum of money. What should she prioritize? How could she ensure she used it wisely? But as she thought more about Evelyn's advice, to use the gift to build a better future, her path became clearer. First, she paid off her mounting debts, breathing a sigh of relief as the constant stress of overdue bills lifted. Next, she enrolled in night classes at the local community college, pursuing a degree in business administration, a dream she'd abandoned years ago due to financial constraints. With Evelyn's support, she finally had the resources to chase her ambitions. But perhaps most importantly, Sarah vowed to honor Evelyn's request. Every chance she got, she looked for opportunities to help others. Whether it was volunteering at a soup kitchen, mentoring teenagers in her neighborhood, or simply lending an ear to a friend in need, she made kindness a cornerstone of her daily life. A year later, Sarah stood nervously outside a grand estate nestled amidst rolling hills. This was Evelyn's home, a place she'd only heard about in passing during their brief conversations. Today, however, Evelyn had invited her for tea, eager to catch up and hear how Sarah had been using the gift. As Sarah rang the doorbell, butterflies fluttered in her stomach. Moments later, Evelyn appeared, looking as elegant and composed as ever. "Sarah, come in," she exclaimed, ushering her inside. Over tea and homemade scones, Sarah recounted everything that had happened since their last meeting. She spoke passionately about her studies, her newfound confidence, and the countless acts of kindness she'd witnessed and participated in along the way. Evelyn listened intently, her eyes shining with pride. When Sarah finished speaking, Evelyn reached across the table and placed a hand over hers. "You've done wonderfully, dear. I couldn't be prouder of the person you've become." Sarah smiled, feeling a surge of gratitude wash over her. "I owe it all to you, Evelyn. If it weren't for your generosity, I wouldn't be here today." Evelyn shook her head gently. "No, Sarah. You did this. All I did was give you a nudge. The rest was up to you." Years later, Sarah would go on to open her own cafe, a cozy little spot inspired by Maggie's Diner, where everyone was welcome, regardless of their circumstances. True to her promise, she implemented a pay-it-forward board, allowing customers to purchase meals for strangers in need. The initiative quickly gained popularity, drawing attention from the entire community. One day, as Sarah watched a young waitress serve a free coffee to an elderly man, she couldn't help but smile. The cycle of kindness had come full circle, proving that even the smallest gestures can spark extraordinary change. And so, Sarah lived her life guided by the lessons Evelyn had taught her, that kindness is a currency far greater than money, and that sometimes the simplest acts of compassion can alter the course of a lifetime. Life may throw challenges our way, But within every struggle lies an opportunity to grow, to connect, to inspire, and to transform. So the next time you find yourself faced with a choice between kindness and indifference, remember Sarah's story, because you never know whose life you might change, including your own.